Buffalo, New York, circa 1910. A city booming with population and culture. A city that would continue to grow and prosper over the next 4 decades. Buffalo was an invigorating, exciting place to live during such a revolutionary era. Advancements were flourishing, and with the turn of the century, many new inventions such as aircrafts and radio were new concepts that fueled America's launch into the exploration of creativity and technology. The capturing of images and the art of photography experienced a period of significant growth and popularity in the early 20th century. Perhaps known as one of the most popular photographers at the time, Howard Dwight Beach resided in Buffalo, New York, where he would work out of his own studio. Beach was the son of machinist Osgood and his wife Mary, born in New Britain, Connecticut in 1867. After moving to the city of Buffalo in 1884 to work as an apprentice to the photographer Andrew Simpson, the duo would eventually become business partners in 1896. In the year 1900, Beach purchased what was once Simpson's interest in the company. 8 years later, Beach would open a new studio located at 459 Virginia Street in the city of Buffalo. Howard Dwight Beach passed in the year 1954 at 87 years old. With his passing, however, his legacy lives on. Beach's enormous collection of photographed images during his life captured irreplaceable moments in time that encompassed the individuals of Buffalo. His work provided a time capsule of sorts, a way to look into the past and experience its influences. The following images are just a mere portion of the moments Beach was able to capture during his distinguished career. Reverend Robert John McAlpine was born in Mount Forest, Canada on August 25, 1874. After graduating from his local schools, he continued his education at the University of Toronto, where he would earn a master's degree. Eventually, McAlpine would marry Ma'am Stewart of Canada, and they would have 2 kids, Stuart and Edith. Stewart was born in Canada in 1904. Edith, however, was born in Buffalo in 1917. McAlpine relocated his family to Buffalo in 1914, where he became Reverend of the Central Presbyterian Church. In 1918, McAlpine established his own church at 2700 Bailey's Avenue in the city of Buffalo. McAlpine Church still stands there today. He became a published author, writing both What is True Religion and There Is No Death. McAlpine is most remembered for hosting the first religious radio show in the city of Buffalo. He was nicknamed the Shepherd of the Air. On September 26, 1926, he passed away while vacationing in Waverly Beach, Ontario. He was only 51 years old. Charles Wright Miller, a Buffalo native, was born on January 19, 1837. He was affectionately known as Gramp to the community he lived in because of his friendliness and his gentle heart. In 1848, his father Jacob started a line of omnibuses running from Main Street to Cold Springs. An omnibus is a large horse-drawn carriage that transported people before the invention of the automobiles. From a young age, Gramp worked these lines with his father. His father passed away suddenly when Gramp was only 18 years old. After his father's passing, Gramp now was faced with the responsibility of operating the business as well as providing for his family. He was joined in Holy Union with Louisa L. Noxon in 1861. And a year later, they gave birth to a young daughter named Kate. After the invention of the automobile, he sold his omnibus business to the New Street Railroad and became superintendent of this railroad. Eventually, Miller founded the Miller Brundage Company. In the year 1917, he sold his business in good faith in order to retire. Kate would eventually marry and have 3 kids of her own. Louisa passed away in 1910, leaving Charles a widower for the final 11 years of his life. Charles Wright Miller passed away on February 21, 1921 from acute indigestion. Elizabeth Good was born in the year 1898. She was photographed by Beach first in 1917, then again in 1919. She was a daughter of Daniel and Sarah Good. Daniel was a very successful businessman who partnered with Seymour H. Knox I. Knox's son would later make a large contribution to the Albright Knox Gallery in Buffalo. On December 29, 1920, she was united in marriage to the famous Ellsworth Hunt Augustus, who was mentioned in magazines such as Vanity Fair in 1920. He would later serve as the 10th National President of the Boy Scouts of America. Elizabeth and her husband lived together in Cleveland, Ohio, and had a summer home in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Together they had 4 kids, a son named Albert, born in 1926, and 3 daughters, Janine, Elizabeth, and Margaret, born in 1923, 1929, and 1933, respectively. In May of 1964, Elizabeth's husband, Ellsworth, passed away suddenly. Elizabeth Good Augustus passed away in January of 1978 at the age of 80. Lawrence George Williams was born in Buffalo, New York on May 31, 1892. Lawrence was the eldest of 3 sons. His parents were Harry D. Williams and his wife Louise. Lawrence had been enrolled in law school, but before finishing his education, he was drafted into World War I. He served in France during the war, where he rose to the rank of lieutenant. On April 18, 1919, he returned from Europe to finish law school. He would then graduate from Harvard and Yale before finishing his academic career at Buffalo Law. In Buffalo, he would open up his own firm, the Williams & Williams Law Firm. Eventually, he would settle down and marry a young woman named Florence. They had 1 son together, Harry D. Williams II, named after Lawrence's father. On April 27, 1982, Lawrence George Williams would pass away, leaving behind his wife, his son, and 7 grandkids. Elise Carrier was born in 1898 in Buffalo to Canisius and Ann Carrier. She would spend most of her early life in the city of Buffalo. She was photographed by Howard D. Beach on July 7, 1917, when she was just 19 years old. On June 27, 1922, she married Alfred Drescent from New York City. They would move to East Liverpool, Ohio, and begin their lives there together. According to immigration reports, the 2 of them loved traveling and seeing the world together, and they traveled to places such as Bermuda and France. Together they would have 2 children, a daughter named Elizabeth, born in 1923, and a son born in 1925, named Alfred Drescent, Jr. Her husband Alfred died in September of 1975. Colonel William John Wilgus was born to Frank and Mary Ann Wilgus on November 20, 1865. He graduated from Central High School of Buffalo in 1883. Wilgus was an internationally known civil engineer who organized the transportation services of the American Expeditionary Forces during World War I. For his efforts during the war, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal. Over his vast career, he constructed many terminals and railways. He created the New York State Port Authority and oversaw the completion of the Buffalo Central Station. He is mostly remembered for conceiving the concept for the Grand Central Station in New York City. Frank Sprague and William Wilgus invented the third rail together. This component allows trains to receive power from the rails while moving. On June 16, 1919, William John Wilgus married Gertrude Tobin. Wilgus was 53 at the time and Gertrude was 46. They never had any children. Although Wilgus was never personally photographed by Beach, he had many of his family documents photographed by him, including family marriage certificates and old birth certificates of his relatives. William John Wilgus passed away on October 24, 1949, at the age of 83. Margaret C. Beach was born on February 27, 1899. She was the only daughter of Howard D. Beach and his wife Catherine. Growing up around her father's work for most of her life, she was the subject of many of his photographic works. She was also a scrapbook enthusiast and enjoyed writing poetry. According to her passport in 1922, she considered herself to be a musician. She would marry her first cousin, Howard A. Beach. They would never conceive any children. Her husband, Howard A. Beach, would pass on May 12, 1989, in New Britain, Connecticut. Margaret C. Beach would pass away on November 11, 1993. She was 94 years old.